We're joined by John Clayton, now writes for the Washington Post NFL columnist. And looking at your tweets, I see that you had a sit-down with Jim Zorn, who, of course, we knew here 2 years as the head coach of the Redskins. He's resurfaced in the XFL. How was Jim? He was a quirky guy here.
Well, Jim's good. I mean, he's got it looks like he's got a real good situation here with this team and the XFL, the Dragons, because, they sold over 20,000 season tickets.
What?
And he's got, Brandon Silver, who's like one of the better quarterbacks in the AAF from last year. A pretty good-looking team, and it looks like they should be pretty good in the league. So it's like it's good because now I didn't know this until like last week. I'm now hosting the Jim Zorn show every Monday.
Really?
Here, so it's like it's a good situation. He's got Mike Riley, the former Oregon State coach, as his offensive coordinator. So it looks like it's a pretty good situation, and we'll see how they do once they start the season coming up on Saturday.
All right, so John, last night the Niners are controlling the game, certainly through three quarters. It's 20-10. They just pick off Mahomes for a second time when the Chiefs were driving. And you just assume, all right, this team is built for this type of a game. They can kind of just bleed the clock with their run game, but it doesn't happen, and they have this collapse where they blow the 10-point lead and allow 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. What was your take on the game? Can you kind of pinpoint a few different plays that you thought was the difference?
Yeah, they just didn't run the ball well enough in the fourth quarter. Because, you go back even to the bad loss to Kyle Shanahan when he was in Atlanta with a 25-point loss to the Patriots. It was kind of like the same thing. He just didn't make the right calls at the right time. And I know that there was a stretch there. Now, again, he had one drive once they started to trail for like 2 or 3 first downs. But when you're thinking 2 Super Bowls, you have like about 2 first downs. You have punts, interceptions, mistakes, all those different things. That worked out against him. And now where Andy Reid has a stigma of being the best coach who ever won a Super Bowl, now you have Kyle Shanahan won. They can't do much in the fourth quarter of Super Bowl games. And so that stigma is going to be with him, and that's really going to hurt because, more and more you see these Super Bowls. You have a game like that, like in Seattle, they had the blow of not being able to do anything coming off at the 1 yard line. That hurt. So there's a lot of bad things right now that's setting there for Kyle Shanahan, and again, a lot of great things for Kansas City.
Well, what's the flaw? Is that a flaw in Shanahan or just his players just not executing?
Well, they didn't execute, but of course, he's the one that's got to get them to execute, and it's going to stick by him because he's the head coach. And so because of that, he has to have that until they fix it. And you look at what happens afterwards. The Atlanta loss, that carried over for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Seattle loss carried over for a couple of years. We'll see how it goes for the Rams, but this is tough.
Yeah. Well, the difference in the Atlanta loss is he wasn't head coach.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a big difference there.
Yeah, but again, it's going to stick with him because he's the one that took the criticism.
He took more than the head coach.
He's done a great job in San Francisco. And again, to go from 2-14 to the Super Bowl is absolutely incredible. That goes to his favor, but now the team has to respond. Okay, what happened in this game? You have a 10-point lead, fourth quarter, and he made a mistake in the latter part of the first half on not calling a timeout when he should have called a timeout.
Yeah,
that'll go against him. And again, it's unfair, but it's reality.
Yeah.
What else?
I don't know if you saw, but they flashed to John Lynch up in his suite after they stopped Kansas City, and John Lynch is signaling timeout, timeout, timeout. He wanted to call a timeout, and Shanny didn't want to, and they let a minute bleed off the clock.
Uh-huh. And so that's going to stand by him. And then the same thing is going to go to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Because here's Jimmy Garoppolo, fair or unfair. He doesn't execute well in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, as everything started to fall apart in the latter part of the game, he fell apart. And it's, again, there's so many unfair things happen in this big game, but it's going to stick with it because, again, there's no time to be able to fix it. And until you get back into a Super Bowl, you get back into a big game like that, you have to live with it and live not too well.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to John Clayton, Washington Post NFL columnist. Let's get into kind of the quarterback shuffle offseason, the speculation. It looks like Dak Prescott will probably be franchised. Brady now, the Patriots are saying they're willing to give him $30 million. How do you see things playing out for those guys and the rest of the quarterbacks who are available?
Well, obviously Brady's been the big story because everybody's been speculating that he is going to leave, and it didn't look too good. And yesterday he has the Hulu commercial that now I think starts to bring him back. The fact that they'll pay him $30 million, that's part one. Now what they have to do is talk it through to make him realize, okay, if you're going to take 30, which is $4 million less than Roethlisberger, that what are you going to do for talent? Because they starved him for talent on offense. And I think once they do that, but we're all week for 2-3 weeks, it looks like, okay, he's out. He's going to go to the Raiders. In fact, the Raiders have to make a decision by Tuesday as far as are they going to give $2 extra million to Derek Carr because he's got a guarantee in his contract, which they can do because you can still bring in Brady. But it seems like there's definite interest to go to Vegas to be a Raider. But, I mean, yesterday he looks like he's closer to being a Patriot as long as they can sell him on the idea. It's like, we'll go get you some talent because, I mean, that receiving core that he had was horrible this past year. He had nothing at tight end. The offensive line was a little bit shaky. Now they lose Dante Scarnecchia. So it's not that he's out of there yet, but I think that now he looks closer to staying.
We were just talking to Charlie Casserly about the proposed 17-game schedule that the owners want for 2021. And, he's coming at it from a GM's perspective, and he doesn't like it because he doesn't think it gives younger quarterbacks enough time to develop. But
he wants more preseason games.
He wants the preseason games, and I'm thinking, I'm a fan. I don't want preseason games, and I would love an extra regular season game, especially if you're going to add playoff teams. How close do you think they're going to get to this? You think it's going to happen?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, it looks like it was almost an agreement with the Players Association and the league on a 17-game schedule. Now, the problem is they negotiated it, put everything together, and it's like the union's for it. But the problem is the players aren't for it, and it's the players' union. So this past week, they've been meeting with players. They're going to meet with players in the next couple of days to try to talk it out and see where it's going to go. But they're acceptable to it. Problem is, the union right now doesn't have the support of the players. And until it gets the support of the players, this deal is in jeopardy. But it's been a good negotiation for really the whole year. The relationship with the union and the NFL is very good. But right now, they have to sell the idea of 17 games, which is significant increase in money for the players, benefits, all those different things. But also you can understand from the player standpoint, you have to put your body out there an extra game, right. And that is not good. So the support isn't there, but at least a deal could be there.
What was that proposal with the added game? Was it just one less preseason game? So 3?
I'm sure it's going to be 2.
Oh, it's 2.
You have 2 preseason games. You'll have 17 regular season games. You'll have 2 extra playoff games. So you'll take it from 12 to 14 teams that'll make the playoffs.
Right.
And again, that's significant increase in money. You go to about 48% as far as the money going to the players. So there's a lot right there. But now, if the players don't buy it, then there's big problems. And then, of course, they have to see if they can adjust and see if they can do some kind of a 16-game schedule.
Would they add a bye week?
I guess I probably would. I mean, the only thing that I think that needs to be in there, a lot of things need to be in there, but I think you have to increase the roster sizes from 53, maybe going to 55. Certainly what you have to do is increase the number of active players. I mean, you just can't have the 45 players that are currently active with a backup. You have to fix that up. But again, the deal looks like it's almost done in that regard, but the deal is done if the players can't vote for it and don't want to vote for it.